What if I told you that over a century ago an American motorcycle hit 100 miles per hour, when most riders still thought going that fast was pure madness? Meet the 1919 Excelsior Model 19 Big Valve Twin, a machine that defined speed and power in the roaring 1910s. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Timmy Tiny Wheels, the channel where we dive into the past faster than I dive into a bar tab I forgot I opened. Today, we're cracking open the oil-soaked history book to tell the tale of the 1919 Excelsior Model 19, the American motorcycle that said Harley who and outran Indian before it was a casino. But before we twist the throttle of history, a huge shout-out to the real MVPs, our amazing channel sponsors. Regular folks with exceptional taste who help keep the wheels turning and the stories rolling. Thanks to you, I didn't sell this microphone for beer money. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Now let's ride back to 1919, a year when the world was tired of war, helmets were optional, and American motorcycles were not just transport. They were declarations of speed, pride, and possibly bad decision-making. The Excelsior Model 19 Big Valve Twin was born in the steel heart of Chicago in 1919 under the heavy hand and brilliant brow of Ignaz Schwinn. Yes, that's Schwinn, the bicycle baron who looked at motorcycles and said, "Let's make these bicycles terrifying." Excelsior was America's third wheel in the glorious love triangle of Harley-Davidson and Indian. But while the others were still flirting with belt drives and single-speed slowness, Excelsior went full mad scientist. Their engineers, tired of being lapped on the racetrack and in the marketplace, decided to slap bigger intake valves on their V-twin engine and let her scream. The result? A V-twin with enough torque to yank your mustache off. This was their counterpunch to the Cyclone overhead cam engine, which was fast but fragile. The Big Valve was fast and tough, like if Chuck Norris married a speedboat. 1919 was a weird year. World War I had just ended. People were patriotic, broke, and looking for adventure. Excelsior leaned into the mood, painting their machines in olive drab and calling them military models, even though they mostly ended up under speed-hungry civilians and law enforcement who liked their sirens loud and their engines louder. More than 6,000 motorcycles rolled out of Excelsior's factory that year. That might not sound like much today, but back then it was enough to make your neighbors jealous and your dentist nervous. Let's talk about what made the Big Valve Twin such a mechanical rock star. First, the engine. A 61 cubic inch, that's about 1,000 cc 45-degree V-twin using the IOE inlet over exhaust F-head design. It had the intake valve in the cylinder head and the exhaust on the side, which is engineer speak for more zoom, less boom. Thanks to those enlarged intake valves, the engine produced between 7 and 9 horsepower, which in 1919 was like mounting a wild bear to a bicycle frame. The transmission? A hand-shifted 3-speed, mounted on the tank like a gear lever from a steampunk dream. The clutch? Foot-operated, but also had a backup lever on the tank in case your legs were too busy panicking. It used chain drive both from the engine to the transmission and out to the rear wheel. No more slipping belts. It even had a kickstarter. Before that, you had to start these things with a crank and a prayer, and prayers, I believe, were in high demand. The frame was rigid steel, no rear suspension, because comfort was considered a sin. The front fork, however, was a reinforced Springer-style unit, an upgrade for handling the occasional pothole or cow. Wheels? Spoked 18-inch, typically with tall 28 by 3-inch, 28 by 3 inches tires. Brakes? Just one. On the rear, operated by foot. That's it. Dimensions were modest, a wheelbase of about 56 inches, 1,420 millimeters, ground clearance around 6 inches, 150 millimeters, and a dry weight of roughly 300 pounds, 135 kilograms. Top speed? A hair-raising 85 miles per hour. 85 miles per hour? About 135 kilometers per hour. And let me tell you, that was without ABS, traction control, or the sweet sound of your wife begging you not to ride it. Fuel tank capacity was about 3 gallons, 11 litres, which gave it a range of around 90 to 120 miles, depending on how scared you were. Fuel consumption hovered at about 45 miles per gallon, 5.2 litres per 100 kilometres. Not bad for a machine that sounded like thunder in a tin can. Now, here's the real magic. The Big Valve wasn't just fast, it was dependable. On the track, it humiliated Harleys and Indians, winning races like the 1915 300-mile endurance at Chicago. On the street, it was known as the motorcycle that would keep going long after your fillings rattled loose. Even better, it had one of the first partially removable frames. The top tube could be unbolted to service the engine. You hear that, modern manufacturers? You don't need 14 hours and a priest to adjust your valves. Did you know that Excelsior was the first to hit 100 miles per hour? 100 miles per hour? Officially in the USA? Lee Humiston did it in 1912 on one of these monsters. And no, he didn't have Kevlar. He had courage, goggles, or that Schwinn ended motorcycle production in 1931 with a dramatic speech. One day he just said, "Gentlemen, we're done." And that was it. No email, no memo, just old-school CEO mic drop. And yes, there were even Excelsiors in Australia, because nothing says Outback ready like a rigid frame, rear-only brake American fire breather. Those folks weren't just brave, they were clinically fearless. Back in 1919, the Excelsior Model 19 cost around $350. $350, a small fortune back then, equivalent to about $6,500. $6,500 today, or €6,000, give or take a bratwurst. Nowadays, you better start saving your retirement fund. At recent auctions, these bikes have fetched anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000, depending on condition. The record? A beautifully restored example sold for $81,415. $81,415, and if you're a real nutcase, one custom replica race version even brought in $129,000. So here it is. The Excelsior Model 19. It was fast, furious, and fantastically American. It had a soul, a growl, and the kind of mechanical honesty that modern bikes dream about while plugged into diagnostics. I believe it deserves respect not just for its engineering, but for its boldness. It didn't try to be everything for everyone. It just wanted to be the fastest V-twin you could afford and survive. So would I ride one today? Only downhill, in a straight line, with a priest. And that, my friends, wraps up this high-octane history ride. If you loved it, hit that thumbs up like it owes you money. Subscribe for more bikes that could maim you before lunch. Till next time, stay curious, stay sarcastic, and never trust my neighbor Bob when he says he upgraded his motorcycle with magnets for anti-gravity.